Welcome back, aliens. My name is Navin Reddy, and in this video, we'll see an example covering Servlet, JSP, Maven, and JDBC. In one video, we are covering all these things. So this video will be helpful for those people who want to revise all these topics. So maybe you have learned these topics from somewhere, and now you want to make a quick recap. So this video will be helpful for you because we will be covering most of them. The internal topic of that as well. And then if you want to just see how Servlet, JSP, Maven, and JDBC looks like, you talk to lots of people and they say, okay, you should learn Servlet and JSP, but you're not sure what exactly we see in that. Some people know Core Java and they just want to see how Servlet JSP looks like. So this video will be helpful in that way. Now again, this video is not for those people who want to learn Servlet and JSP in depth because we'll not be covering all those things in detail here. But then if you just want to get a gist, and then if you just want to do a quick recap, this video will be helpful for you. So let's get started. Now first of all, to make it work, we require two softwares here. The first one is Eclipse. Again, you can go with any IDE which you like. Maybe you can go for NetBeans or Eclipse or IntelliJ, which you like. In fact, in my machine, I already have Eclipse, so I will continue with that. And then the second software we need is a RDBMS. So in this example, I'm using MySQL. You can opt for Oracle, Postgres, whichever you like. So I'm in this video, I will be using Eclipse and MySQL. Yeah. So in my Eclipse, you have to open Eclipse. You have to select a workspace, and then let's create a project. So I will say new, and now you have two choices. You can go for a dynamic web project, or you can go for Maven project. Now, what's the advantage of going for Maven? So in dynamic, what you do is you create a project and then you assign a Tomcat server. Again, you have to do that. So you have to assign a Tomcat server, and then what you do is when you want to use some external jar files, example for MySQL, for JDBC, we need a jar file, right? And you have to go to Google, you have to go to internet, you have to download the jar file and you have to add in your project. Now, when you work with lots of dependencies, it creates some issues. Example, if you work with advanced framework like Spring, Hibernate, or maybe Sturge framework, there are so many dependencies you have to work with. So instead of downloading all those dependencies by yourself, I'm talking about jar files, okay? What you can do is you can ask Maven or a build tool to give it to you. So Maven will say, hey, okay, programmer, you want mysql-connector, I will give it to you. If you want Spring framework dependencies, I will give it to you. So your Maven will give you all those dependencies. Again, you have to configure it somewhere. You have to inform Maven, hey, what are things I need? So Maven will give you those things, provided it's there with Maven. And luckily, we have all the jar files available with Maven. Okay, so here I will be selecting a Maven project, and how to do that? Just click on others, and you will simply say, okay, it's taking some time. I will say Maven. So search for Maven project, and you can see we got Maven here. Click on next, and we'll say next. Here we'll mention the project type. So I'm going for a web app project. Again, you can select quick start if you want to go for a standalone software. Here we are building a web application, so let's select web app, click on next, and here we'll enter group ID. So group ID is basically your company IDs. Right? So let's say if you have 1,000 projects on some web services or some Play Store, you have to make sure that every app is different, and you can differentiate between those with the help of group IDs and the package name. So I will say group ID is Telusko. That's how I represent my group ID. I can say artifact ID, the project name. I will say Servlet JSP demo. Again, this is Servlet JSP, JDBC, and Maven demo, but let's name it as Servlet JSP demo. And we'll click on finish. So we got our Maven project. Now this project is coming from the internet. You can see it is taking some time to configure. Now if I go back to my project, or not this one, this is the Spring project. So this is the project which we have created now, which is Servlet JSP demo. Again, it's taking some time to build the project, and you can see we got our project here. We got resource folder, we got JRE, we got Maven dependencies. Where is Maven dependencies? So this is your where is that? Where is Maven dependency? So if I open Java resources, you can see in this we have Maven dependencies, and we only have one dependency. What I want is a MySQL dependency as well, because if you want to work with MySQL, again in this application we'll be working with a database, right? So we require a mysql-connector to connect with this database. In fact, I also have a database ready with us. So I have installed MySQL pre-hand, so you can install MySQL or Postgres, your choice. So I have MySQL with MySQL Workbench. So it's taking some time to open. So by the time it opens, what I will do is I will download the dependency. Now question arises, how will you get the MySQL dependency? It's very simple. You just need to inform Maven, hey, you want MySQL dependency. And how do we interact with Maven? You do that with the help of pom file. So in this pom, which is project object model, you have to inform what type of dependency you want. So we just need to add a dependency, which is MySQL dependency here. So we already have JUnit. Now we don't have to type by yourself. Okay, if you're thinking you need to by heart all the dependencies, not needed. You can simply go to a website, and so the website is MVN repository. Okay, so here we'll search for MVN repository, and it will take you to MVN repository where you just need to search for which dependency you need. So here we need a mysql-connector. So if you can search for mysql-connector, it will give you a connector here. So if I click on search, and it will give you a connector, and which one you select, you can select any version. I will select 6.0.6. Just copy this and go back to your MySQL, you go back to your Eclipse and paste it here. The moment you paste it, you can see it will download the MySQL connector for you, and our job is done. So using Maven, you can download any dependency. If you want MySQL, you get it there. If you want Spring Framework dependencies or Java I'm talking about, you can get that using Maven. So Maven has lots of advantages, like it's a build tool. You can build the application. It will package the thing for you. But time being, we only need a Java file. Yeah. So we got a Java file there. Now the next thing is I want to get a page, right? So using which I can send data. So if I go back to my MySQL workbench, you can see I will just connect with my workbench, and the password is ****, which is root in this case for my machine at least. And okay, so I already have a database called as Naveen. If I explore Naveen, you can see we have a database Naveen in which I have a table called as alien. So I already have all this data ready with us, so that when we work on a project, it will not waste much of time. So I have a MySQL database which is Naveen, and the table name is aliens. We just need to fetch data from this. Example, if a user says, hey, I want data about user ID 9, so it will print 9, Maria, and hardware. If someone says, hey, I want user ID 2, so it will print 2, Archana, big data. If I want 5, Pranav and Oracle. So this is what I want to do. So for this, we need a page, right? So that a user can enter the value. So if you can see, we already have a index.jsp page. Now, why do we need JSP? Why not HTML? Because when you say you want to make a web page, you always go for HTML, right? But in this case, when you say you want to create a page, and that should be a dynamic page, because see, what happens with HTML is you can make only static content with HTML. Oh, again, if you are using JavaScript, and then if you're sending an async request, we can achieve dynamic content there. But imagine if you want to make a dynamic page without using JavaScript and all those stuff. If you want to write Java code inside HTML, is it possible? Can you run Java code inside HTML? Not exactly, right? So that's why we require JSP. So whenever you want to create a dynamic content, you have two choices. You can go for Servlet or JSP. Now, when you want to process something, Servlet is better. And if you want to create a view, JSP is better. So Servlets are used to process the request. So whatever a client sends a request, Servlet will handle that. Again, you might be thinking, why Servlet then? We can use normal Java, right? Servlets is Java. Okay, Servlet is a Java file. The only thing is, in Servlet, it has a special feature where it can accept a user request from the internet, right? It's normal Java code. If I make the code, it will make sense. But then we have Servlet, which will accept the request, and we will process some information, and then we will show the data on JSP. Now again, we have one more thing which is called as MVC, which stands for Model View Controller. Now MVC is used. Let's say if a user sent a request will go to controller. Now controller will generate data. Again, if you want to know about, if you're new to MVC, please watch the MVC video first. I do have a video on MVC. Do watch it first, and then so if you know about, just to make a revision, we have a controller which will accept the request. We have a model where you will hold the data, and we have a view where you will show the data. Yeah. So we can implement controller with the help of servlets. We can implement model with the help of a normal Java class, and we can implement view with the help of JSP. So this is our JSP here, and you can see we are getting some error here. The error is because we don't have tomcat linked here. So we have to make sure that I do have tomcat, and fortunately I do have a tomcat here. Can you see that? Let me just verify if it is working. So if I say tomcat start, so tomcat is there and it is in running state, I guess. Yes, it is running state. You just need to connect your project with Tomcat because your project is not connected with Tomcat yet. So I will right click here and I will say properties, and there's option of target runtime. You simply have to check this thing, which will make sure that your Tomcat is linked, and click on OK. Now this will link your Tomcat, and we got a Tomcat there. So you can see there's no problem with JSP file. Now in this file, I will create a form tag and I will say form action equal to, and I will mention I want to fetch the user data. So I want to fetch the alien data because the table name is alien, right? So I will say get alien. So that's my user request. So action is get alien. And here I will specify what I want to fetch. So I want to fetch the data based on the AID. So if I mention AID, I want the complete data of the user. Okay, and then I also need to make sure that I have a button here to click it. So I will say input type equal to submit. Yeah, so I will say submit here. Okay, now when I click on the submit, it should fetch the data, right? Now question arises, when you click on the submit, there need to be a controller who will accept your request, right? And that's where we have Servlet. So let's get a simple Servlet here. And there's one more issue, I don't have a Java folder. You can see that in SRC, we need Java folder as well. So we have to make sure that you have Java here. Okay, not here. Let's go to main and say, I want to get a new folder. I will say new folder. And that folder name is Java folder, which should be inside main. Okay, now in this Java folder, I want to create some resources. So I will right click on my project. I will say, oh, what's that? And I want a servlet, right? So I will simply say, I want a class, or maybe I will simply say create a servlet. So I will right click, I will say new servlet, and this servlet will have a name. So it will have a package name first. I will say com.Telusko and com.Telusko.web. And this class name here will be alien, or I will say get alien controller. Yeah, so I'm specifying a controller name as get alien controller. I will click on next. Now the URL mapping. So for which request I want to call this controller? So the request type is get alien. So whenever I use a request for get alien, I want to call this controller. So this is the linking. This is how you link. So you have a controller, which is a servlet, and you have a request. So request is get alien, right? And the controller is, the name of the controller is get alien controller. You can see the spelling difference there, right? So whenever you use a request for get alien, you can see in the HTML we are specifying get alien. You have to request get alien controller. Click on OK and click on finish. This will create a servlet for you. And where is the mapping you will be saying? The mapping will be done inside web.inf. So web.inf, we have web.xml file. This is where you have done the mapping. So the mapping is done with the help of servlet tag and servlet mapping tag. So in the servlet mapping, you specify for which request you want to call which controller. Can you see that the controller name is here, the class name, com.telusko.webapp.get alien controller. Simple, right? So that's how it works. That's how it does the mapping. Now if I go back to controller, here we have a class. We don't need all this extra thing. We just need a do-get method. So basically, whenever you have a get request, so basically we have two types of requests. In fact, we have 5, but then in Servlet we use 2. We have get request and we have post request. Now get is something very, so if you want to fetch data from server, you use get request. If you want to submit data on the server, you use post request. So get to fetch and post to submit data. Here we want to fetch data, right? And that's why we are using get request. Okay, now once you specify get request, what to do? So based on the AID, first of all, a user is sending AID, right? So if you can see in the index page, a user is sending AID. How can you fetch the AID in this servlet? Thankfully, we have a request object. So using request object, you can actually fetch data. So I would say request.getParameter. So request is an object of HTTP servlet request. So we just need a method called as getParameter, in which you specify, hey, I want data which is coming from AID. So request.getParameter AID, it will give you the data. But then we have to store it somewhere, right? So, okay, I will just delete some extra rows here. I will say, I want to store that in a AID variable. So I will say int AID equal to request.getParameter. Now, unfortunately, getParameter will give you a integer. Oh, sorry, it will give you a string. I want integer. So I will simply say integer.parseInt. And here I will just try to remove this. Yeah. So you can see I have passed it, right? So you're converting your request data into an integer format. Now, once you got your integer, I want the object of alien, right? Again, you can fetch one data. You can fetch AID, you can fetch name, and you can fetch tech. So you can see the column names. We have AID, name, and tech. So these are the 3 columns in your database. Now, you can fetch these 3 values, but we are working with Java, right? And Java is purely object oriented. That means even if you want to fetch this data, this should be passed in the object format. How do we get the object? So to create the object, first you need a class. So in this, I will create a class, and this class name will be called as alien, and this alien is a model. So whenever you have a class whose object will represent some data, that's your model object. Yeah, so I would say I have alien here, and this alien will have 3 things. It will have private int AID, it will have private string a name, and it will have private string tech. So we have these 3 things, and for these 3 variables, I want getters and setters. So I will simply right click here. I would say source generate getter setters, and I will select all the variables here, and I will click on OK. Now, once I got these getter setters, let's also use toString method so that if you want to print this object, it should print some data, right? So I would say source toString, because what will happen is if you try to print a reference sort of a class, it will print the hash code. I don't want that. I want the data. So override toString, so wherever possible. In fact, I would suggest for every class override toString. That's how we do it. Okay. So now, once we got toString here, let's go back to controller, and now we can create object of AID. So I would say alien. So first create object of alien. So I would say alien A1 equal to new alien. Let's get the object of alien. No, we should not be getting object of alien, right? Because you want to fetch this data from database. Okay, that's a thing, right? How do you fetch data from database? Now remember this, whenever you want to work with database, you need to write database steps. JDBC steps, right? Now, JDBC has 7 steps in it. Now, if you think about those 7 steps, the first step is you have to import the package, second step is you have to load the driver, you have to create a connection object, you have to create a statement object, you have to process results, and then you have to close the connection. There are so many steps, right? Now, where to write all these steps? Should we write all these steps inside the controller, which is Servlet? That's not a good idea. In Servlet, Servlet should only fetch the request, or it will accept the request, it should do some processing but not JDBC processing, and then it should return the data to the view. So who will do the JDBC processing, or who will have all the content, all the code? And that's where we have a special layer which is called as DAO layers. Again, it's not compulsory to go for DAO layer, but that's a good practice, right? If you want to be a good developer, if you want to create a software which will be having less bugs, go follow some standards. And that's where you have a DAO layer. So let's get a class. And I will call this class as alien DAO, which belongs to a package com.telusko .web.DAO. So we are putting that in a DAO class or DAO package, alien DAO. So example, if you have 5 tables, so you'll be having 5 classes which represent those tables, and you'll be having 5 DAO classes, right? So that's how, so every class will have its own, every table will have its own DAO class, and in each DAO class you'll be having those 4 operations. Create data, or create alien, read alien, update alien, delete alien, right? So cut options. Normally that's what we do. So in this alien DAO, I'll be having a method which will return me the alien object, and I will say this is get alien. So this get alien will accept a AID, and it will give me the alien object. That's simple. So let me just create an alien object. I will say alien, and then I would say this alien, we have to import the package for this because it belongs to a different package. Done that, and I will say a dot set AID. So time in I will specify static IDs, okay, static values, so that let's see if it is working or not. I would say name is Naveen, not small capital A. Then a dot set tech as my favorite technology is Java, always Java, and then I will return the alien object. Of course, this data should be coming from database, but then let's go step by step. Now, once we got this class, let's go back to controller. Now, the alien data will be coming from the DAO layer, right? And that's where you require DAO object. So we'll say alien DAO, and I will say DAO object equal to new alien DAO, yeah. And let's import the package for that. So you can import the package in Eclipse by saying Control Shift O. So Control Shift O is used to to import the package for required packages. And using this DAO now, you can specify, hey DAO, get me the alien if I pass the value which is AID. So if a user says AID 1, it will pass 1. But that doesn't matter, because even if you are passing 1, you are passing static values. Yeah. So we are doing some some thing here, some weird stuff. Anyway, so once we got this alien object, I want to display it. But where to display that? And to display this data, we need to create a JSP, because JSP is a place where you can actually show the data, right? Again, you can print data from here as well. But creating a HTML page in Servlet is a bad thing. Okay, it's not a bad thing, but then it will be damn difficult to design a page. Think about it. Let's say if you want to make an awesome website where you have lots of graphics. So even if you create a small page with lots of graphics, it needs around 70-80 lines of HTML tags. What do you think? Will you write all the HTML tags in this servlet by saying out.print? That's not a good idea. So that's why we require a separate page where you will have design and where you can put data. So let's do that. So in this project, I will say right click. I want to get a JSP page which will show my aliens. I will say, hey JSP, show the aliens. I will say show alien.jsp. I will click on finish. So we got a JSP page here which will have some layer. Example, I will change the color. I will say BG. You can design your stuff. I'm very bad with HTML. So you can see I'm simply saying BG color equal to cyan. That's it. That's what I know about HTML. And here I will print the data about alien. Now, how do you print it? Oh, first of all, how do we call a JSP from a servlet? That's the first question, right? So I will go back to servlet. Now, how do you call a JSP? Now, there are two ways of calling it. One is dispatcher, which is request dispatcher. The second way is using send redirect. Which one to use here? Now, we can use anything, but then it is always recommended that if you want your client to know that you are getting redirected, then go for redirect. Otherwise, if you're using dispatcher, client will not even know what is happening behind the scene. And that's what we want, right? We don't want to confuse our clients by changing the URL every time. So, because a client is sending request to get alien, not show alien, right? Because if I use redirect, the URL will be show alien. Okay. So what I will do here is I would say I will use the dispatcher. So I will say request dispatcher, and I will say RD equal to request dispatcher is an interface, and the way you can get the object of it by saying request dot get request dispatcher. And in this you have to specify. So in this bracket you have to specify the name of your JSP. So name of the JSP is show alien.jsp. Yeah, and you simply have to forward the request. You will say rd.forward, and you will forward these two objects, which is request and response, because you want to send. So when a user send a request, right? User send a request to the index page, right? From index page, user is sending request to the controller. That's one request. The same request object will go to JSP. So user should not know that we are sending two requests, right? So that request will go to JSP, and that's why we have to forward. Otherwise, if you don't want to forward, it's your choice. You can go for another way as well. Okay, which is dispatch, which is redirect way. Time, let's go for dispatcher, and now it will forward the request to JSP. It works, okay? Well, let's verify. In JSP, I will print in show alien just to see if the flow is working. Yeah. So we will be running index.jsp. Index.jsp will call a controller, which is your servlet, and servlet will call JSP. Let's verify. Right click, run on server. I guess it will run on my Firefox, maybe. Let me just remove this MVC from here because that's not required. Click on finish. My browsers are working so very slow today. Yeah, so we can see it is asking for the AID. I would say 101. I will click on submit, and you can see it is printing a JSP page. Remember the page color, which is cyan color, and then see the request. Request is still get alien. Even if you're calling a page which is get, which is show alien, the URL is get alien because we're using dispatcher. So a client don't even know which page is getting called. That's the beauty. Yeah. But if you're using redirect, then yeah, it will show the page name. Okay. So I will stick with dispatcher servlet. But how do we pass this object with alien here? So I want to pass this alien A1 object to JSP. And the way you can do that is by using the request object, because in forward, you are sending request object, right? So what if you can simply add your data in the request object? It's something like, let's say if from US, if your friend is coming to your place, let's say, so if I'm staying in India now, so let's say one of my friends is coming from US to India, and if I want to order something from US, he can carry it, right? So he's not coming to India just to give me the, just to give that thing to me, but he's coming to India for his own work, but then I'm asking him to take that thing for me. That's the same thing we can do here. The forward is sending the request object, right? So we can put that data into request object and send it. So I would say request dot set attribute, and I will have a name. So I will say I'm sending the alien data. I'm sending alien, and the object is A1. So request dot set attribute, we are sending alien, which is A1 here. And in JSP, you just need to fetch it. Now, you can write Java code here, right? So to write Java code inside JSP, we simply use this this Angular backend in percentage. This is called as scriptlet. Yeah. So in JSP we have this, we have declaration tag, we have scriptlet tag, we have different tags available. But if you want to Java code inside this, we can simply use scriptlet tag. And I would say I'm fetching the object of alien, which is A1 here. But how do you fetch it? So you simply say request dot get attribute, and you specify, hey, I want to fetch alien. Now, if you remember, in Servlet we have set the attribute. In JSP, we are getting the attribute with the name alien. Same thing, right? And here we'll print the A1 object. Oh, not this way. We'll say out.println. I will say A1. Okay, I guess we have to import the package. Now, this alien is a class which belongs to package model. So you simply say control space, and that's the package. You can see import package comes something like this. This is how you import packages in JSP. Not like normal Java code where you write import space and package name. You have to say import equal to, because page is a tag for you now, and this becomes an attribute. Okay, we are getting some error here because we have to typecast it, because get attribute will give you object of object. I want object of alien. So we just have typecasted it. It should work now, right? It should print the data, at least some data, right? So let's restart the server. And let me just go back to my page here, refresh, and I will enter the data, which is 101. I will say submit. Can you see that? We got our data. We got alien AID is equal to 101, name Naveen, and tech Java. But hold on, this is static data, right? This is not coming from database. So how do we connect with database here? So if you want to connect with database, you just need to use DAO layer, right? Because this is where you are faking this data. You don't need to create a dummy data. You want to fetch it from database. So let's remove this, or maybe you can just have it there. That's fine. What I want is I want to write database code here. Now to work with database, we need to follow certain steps, right? The first step, you have to import the package. So I will go here. I will say import java.sql.star. That's how we import the package. And then the next step is you have to get the connection object. Now I would say I will simply create a connection object outside the method, or let's do that inside just for time being. I would say try catch, because it might generate errors. So I will say try catch, and then here we'll write all those statements. So we'll say the first step is we have to say class.forName, and here we have to mention com.mysql.jdbc.driver. Yeah, so this is how you load your driver. So for MySQL, we have this string. For Oracle, we have a different string. For Postgres, we have a different string. So you have to just go to Google and search for the driver name for different drivers, different DBMS. That's the first step. We got your class.forName. Next is you have to get a connection object. So I will say connection conn equal to. Now connection is an interface, and the way you can get the object of it will by saying driver manager dot get connection, and here we have to pass 3 parameters. So in this get connection, we have to pass 3 parameters. The first one is the URL, the second one is the username, and third is password. So password is root, and the username is also root for MySQL, for my machine, and the URL is jdbc:/mysql:// localhost:3306/ database name is Naveen. I know it's a big string, right? But then this is called as URL, which is used to connect with database. So jdbc:/mysql:// localhost:3306/Naveen. Now once we have done with the connection object, we need to create statement object, because let's say if you want to call someone, you create the connection first, you dial the number, you connect, and then you think what to say, and then you say it, right? So that thinking is statement, right? So let's get a statement object. I will say statement st equal to con.create statement. Now you will be saying something, and how to say. So you will say st.execute query, and you will fire the query here. What's the query for us? It is select star from alien. That's the query you have. But then this query is not complete because we have to specify the ID as well, right? Because I don't want all data, I want only one. So I would say where AID is equal to plus, I'll mention AID. Simple. And then this execute query will return you the object of alien, this will not return object of alien, right? It will return the object of result set, because statement object returns the object of result set. So I would say result set rs equal to. So result set is an interface. So the moment you fire a query, it will not give you normal data, right? It will give you a table structure, and that will be stored inside result set. And now from result set, you can say, so we have to traverse between different rows, right? So if you get 5 rows, how do you specify which row to pick up? And that's why we use rs.next. So rs.next is basically to shift your pointer between different rows. And we are not even sure if you have a next row, and that's why we'll say if, so that we can avoid the exceptions. If you have a next row, because next will also give you a return, it will return Boolean value if you have a row. If you have a row, then what we'll do is we'll fetch one value. And how do you fetch? So we will fetch and we will assign to the alien object. We'll say a.set AID. Now this data is coming from result set, so we'll say rs.getInt. The first column is AID. So we have to mention the column name. So when I say get int, you have to mention the column name. We'll say a.set a name. I will say rs.getString, because a name is string format. I would say this is a name. You can also use column numbers if you want, 1, 2, 3, or you can use column names. So to be on safe side, always use column name. Yeah, it is safe, right? You know what columns you are fetching. You don't have to remember the sequence of columns. And once we got it, that's it. We don't even need to specify the static value, because data will be coming from database now. These are the steps. Oh, one more important step, you have to close it, but that's fine. You can do it in your code. And after doing all this thing, let me just verify if it is working. I will right click here. I will say run. I will say go back and refresh. And this will say 9. I will say submit. You can see we got 9, Maria and hardware. If I say 5, submit, you can see we got 5, Pranay and Oracle. If I say 1, you can see we got Naveen, Java. So it's working, right? So we have done with Maven, JDBC, Servlet and JSP in one code. So this is how it works. Awesome, right? Again, this video was not for beginners. This was for people who have already done JSP Servlet and just they want to revise it, or if you just want to see this stuff. You know, some people have the curiosity of how, I mean, what exactly it is, you know. So let's say if you're learning core Java and someone says, hey, you need to learn Servlet JSP in future, and they're not sure what they are going to learn. So this video will be helpful for them. So as I mentioned earlier. So it's that awesome. Now, once you watch the video, just check the description area where you have a link. So I have uploaded this project on GitHub, so you will find the link in the description area, and you can add your own code now. So assignment for you after doing this code on your machine is, let's say I also want to create a new alien, because I'm just fetching an alien, right? What if I want to create new alien? So in this I have 101 Carmel Java, right? Let's say if I want to have one more 102, let's say Ritika and some technology, maybe let's say Python again. So in that case, you need to create an alien. And where do you specify the data? So you have to create a page where it will ask you for 3 values. When you click on submit, it will go to a controller, and controller will use a DAO layer to save the alien, right? Create a new method called as save alien here, and write the same steps and save it in the thing. In fact, the moment when I get some time, I will upload that as well. So you can check the description. You will check the link. It may be or may not be available when you check this video, when you check the link. Okay. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the entire session. Let me just go for a quick recap what we have done till now. So first you have an index page where you're asking for the AID. When you click on submit, request goes to the servlet, and this is how you create a servlet. You create a class and extend with JDBC servlet. You have a doGet method here, yeah, and then in doGet you are fetching the AID which is coming from client. You are using a DAO layer to fetch data, and from DAO you are saying get alien by passing that AID, and the same data you are assigning to A1. Oh, there's one more thing we can do here. You know, if you don't want to use liquid dispatcher, you can also use redirect. So the way you do that is by saying response dot send redirect, and you can specify the name, which is show alien.jsp. So we can specify this as well. But the thing is, if you are using this one, what will happen is you cannot use request object because a client will send a new request. When I say client, I'm talking about browser here. So in total, you're sending two requests, one to controller and second to the JSP as well. So in redirect, your response goes to the client again, and from client it goes to the show alien. So it is a new request object. So this will not work. So this request will not work. In that case, you have to use HTTP session. So you have to work with session management. So we have cookies, we have web URL rewriting, or you can also use HTTP session. Session is the best thing I feel. So I will say session equal to, and the way you can get the hold of session is by saying request dot get session, and now you have to set the attribute in session, not in request object. So I will say session dot set attribute, the same thing, alien and A1. You're passing A1. So nothing changed. The only thing is, instead of using request object, you're using session object now, because it doesn't matter how many requests you send to the server now, the session will be maintained. And in show alien, instead of fetching from request object, you have to use session object. Cool. Let's run this code. Let's verify if it is working. I will say run as, or not. Let's restart the server. That will be enough. Let's go back to the page and refresh. Let's enter 1 again. I will say submit. Now look at the URL. You can see now you're calling show alien.jsp. In the earlier case, it was get alien, because since we are using redirect, it is changing the URL as well. So as a client now, I know that I got redirected to a different URL. That's the beauty about send redirect. Yeah, so that's how you use session object. So that's it. This is what we have done in this session. So we'll find the link in the description area where you will find the code on GitHub. And if you liked this video, click on the like button and do subscribe for further videos, and do share this video with your friends. Thank you so much for watching.